What's up? What's up? What's up, family? Welcome to Another Avenue, the podcast where we practically and intentionally engage the art of yielding because God's word directs our paths. I'm excited that you've decided to join in and tune in with us today as we kick off this new ministry and as we kick off this avenue of engaging God's word, but also real life.
Real life. Real life. I'm excited because we get to show you what you've been so ready to see.
Right.
Absolutely. It's gonna be fun.
It will be fun.
It will be fun.
I think this is going to be a good opportunity for people to get a chance to engage what it means to live a life of faith.
Absolutely.
But also how it looks to struggle
Yeah.
with life, trying to follow Jesus
Try.
while living real life.
Real life.
Yeah, let's hop right into it. Who are you?
I am Jalen Oliver. Let's just start when I was knee high to a duck, right? Let's go all the way back to the country, Tuskegee, Alabama. I was actually I was raised in a town called Notasulga, Alabama.
Hold on, wait. Run that back.
Notasulga.
Okay.
Notasulga. Notasulga. So many people say not as ugly, Alabama.
Find that on the map, right?
Find it on the map. Born and raised there my whole life. Went to school in Tuskegee. Grew up Tuskegee, everything, and church has been my whole life. My whole life. Yeah, my whole life. That's the friendly version that we could give about church, right? Church has been my baby my whole life, and I think the same thing for you, right? You know.
Oh, absolutely. So I'm Byron Jackson. I am 33. You're 24.
24.
I don't think we said that.
24.
I'm 33. Born and raised in Anniston, Alabama. Born on Fort McClellan. No longer a military installation, but was born on Fort McClellan. Born and raised in Anniston, Alabama. Church has been my baby.
Please tell them that you were the
Oh, goodness.
church lawman.
Yeah.
Before you had a license.
So yeah, that's crazy. Crazy story. So our church had a habit of bringing in young people. There was a young lady in the church who lived right behind the church, who served as the lawn person for the church. And then when she got, I think she was like getting ready to transition to college or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was already cutting grass, right? So I went, talked to the pastor. They talked to me about it, and I started doing that at 14. Wow. So I was indeed the lawn man of the church before I had a license. My dad used to have to take up 3 hours out of his day on the weekends so that I could load the stuff up on the back of his truck. He would drive me to the church and sit there. Sometimes he would help me, but he would sit there while I cut the church grass, man.
Wow.
Yeah, crazy.
Wow. And that pastor that you talked to about cutting the grass, you eventually followed. That pastor. Reverend
Dr. PQ English, man. He's been like a grandfather to me practically my whole life, especially when my granddad passed. He kind of stepped in that role organically. But I ended up succeeding him as the pastor of Greater Thankful. And so it was an interesting time. What a time to be alive.
Right.
Because I was 22 years old, man. And so it was a fun journey. I guess we can talk through the call stuff in a few minutes, but yeah, so that's my life. But you've been a pastor?
I've been a pastor.
A senior pastor. Yeah.
For real. Like at a real church.
Real life.
Real life. Yeah. Real life. I was interim pastor of First Baptist Whitehall.
Okay, wait. Let's just back up.
All right.
And let's just let you walk us through the call all the way to today.
Ooh.
So let's just do that. You go first and then I'll go.
Okay. So I knew I was called to preach real early. I knew it. But I didn't want to accept it.
I fought it.
Oh, absolutely.
But go ahead.
Absolutely. I think I got for Christmas, 10 months old, I got a drum set, a microphone, a keyboard. I had my own church at like 10 months old.
Your bands and everything.
I had
Okay.
everything,
Okay.
and I was everybody. I didn't have to
Oh,
pay nobody.
man.
I was
Oh,
everybody.
man.
But I preached the sermon. I would go to church, listen to the sermon, come home, and preach the sermon all over again.
So you were being trained to be a country pastor to do it all by yourself.
Because evidently he didn't do it good enough, right?
Right.
So I had to come do it. But seriously, I knew I was called, and I fought it so long because I didn't want people to think that I was following in my dad's footsteps.
So your dad's a pastor.
My dad's a pastor. My dad pastors Bethel in Troy, Alabama, Bethel Missionary Baptist Church. He succeeded the Reverend Dr. L.C. McMillan, and he's there right now. He's about to celebrate 12 years. Shout out to Dad. 12 years as pastor there. So, yeah, I didn't want the whole he just following in his daddy's footsteps thing because I wasn't, and I was actually trying not to. And it literally hit me one night. I was at revival at a church called Real Town Baptist Church in Real Town, Alabama.
That's hilarious.
Real life, right?
Right.
And I'll never forget it. Sylvester Poole Jr. was preaching that night, and I didn't want to go in the sanctuary. I was literally didn't want to go in at all because I was worried about public opinion. My dad, we were the only two together, and I was literally battling what I was trying not to battle, the whole following in his dad's footsteps thing. So I literally stood outside the church like shaking, about to have an anxiety attack because I didn't want to go in. And the word that night was so beautiful. Of course, I went in. I went to church. But the word that night was so beautiful. And I literally got back in the car that night after service was over and just broke down crying. Literally broke down crying. Like,
And you were how old?
I was 14, I want to say.
Man, that's crazy.
14, 15, around that.
Preaching would have been the last thing on my mind. It was the last thing on my mind at 14.
Absolutely. And I just broke and told my dad, and he was like, the typical answer from a seasoned person, especially a seasoned pastor. He was like, I already knew that you were called. I already had it. I already felt it. I never wanted to tell you what I saw in you because I didn't want to force this on you. I wanted you to come to me and tell me. Then I told my pastor, Reverend Dr. John H. Curry Jr., and he was like, I want you to pray. And then if that's still what you feel, in about 6 months, you come back and you tell me. So that's how it happened. And I came back October 30th, 2016. I was 15 years old. I preached my first sermon.
You remember what it was?
I remember what it was.
What was it?
It was when God calls a bench warmer. So it was the text where Jesus is having a great feast.
So you've been doing this title stuff. Like, mine was not as interesting, but go ahead.
Yeah, Jesus called a great feast, and so many people couldn't come. And then he called all the people, the lame, the sick, the paralyzed, and I was the bench warmer because I was the person. I played the drums. I did all that. You played the drums too.
You're gonna make me run. That's good.
I was the person. So I literally preached the sermon about myself the first time I ever preached. And after I preached my first sermon, I served faithfully with my pastor and my dad at both their churches. And then in I want to say it was April of 2020, March of 2020, right after the pandemic began. I got the call to come to First Baptist and serve, and I stayed there for 4 whole years. And when I first started, the people were at home, and then while I was there, the people came back. And I had to pastor actually people, not pastor the camera, right? I had to pastor people, and it was fun. It was actually fun. I was literally emailing some of the church administrators yesterday in worship. They were sending me some documents over, and I was like, y'all are some of the best administrators that I ever had in my life. And yeah, it's a great relationship, great people down there in Whitehall, Alabama, the first missionary Baptist church in Whitehall, 5-star church down there in the country. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So
Nice.
I got the call to come up here because they came and kidnapped me. No,
Yes, we
seriously.
did. It felt like that's what we had to do.
Right.
But
They came and grabbed me and pulled me up here because I was, I guess, the little brother that they never had and the big brothers that I never had in ministry. And I'm grateful that I'm here and serving and with you all. I gave up my senior pastoring, and I'm excited about it. Not because they were bad, but because I just needed to be helping somebody else. And I'm excited to be helping. So we're here, and we're glad to be here.
well, I'm glad you're here.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, Anniston. Picture. Anniston, Alabama. I graduated high school.
Okay.
There was a lot going on at one time, so bear with me.
All right.
But this won't take long.
Okay.
So graduate Sachs High School, 2010. Like a genius, I decide to pass up a scholarship to Jacksonville State to go to UAB. Now, as I'm living this out, I don't realize it, of course, but in retrospect, it makes perfect sense because the Lord used me going to UAB to get me by myself. So, doing the dating thing, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But I'm a freshman in college.
Right.
So, a couple of months after I get to school, I get super sick. Like, super sick. Crazy sick. So sick that I lose about 50-something pounds as a freshman. I ain't know what I had.
Oh, wow.
I ain't lying to you. I was worried.
Yo, you
I said
sick.
no. But so while that's going on, I lose one of my best friends. There was a big group of us in my high school. Anna Fleming. We lose one of our best friends that freshman year. That fall. Like literally I had the day after she passed, I had a math final. That's the only class I've ever failed.
Wow.
Was because I just
Focus.
couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So around the same time, I'm sick. I started throwing up bile. This is a safe space, right?
Yeah.
I started throwing up bile every day. Every morning I woke up, hit the floor, started throwing up. I didn't know what was going on. So I'm losing weight, doing all of this. I'm playing the drums at my home church. So I'm driving back and forth to Birmingham every weekend. But I started feeling like I was losing my mind. Like legitimately losing my mind. I was going crazy. So I thought.
Right.
I'm in my dorm room praying one night. This is not an exaggeration. I'm in my dorm room praying one night, and I'm like, Lord, now I know you. You know me.
Yeah.
I made a promise that I would not abandon my relationship with you for school, right? Or for college life or whatever.
Right.
So am I about to die? Like, tell me.
Yeah.
Some got to give. And I literally heard a voice say, I'm calling you to preach my word. So go through the rest of the semester, but I'm still not getting better. Like, I had a surgery, had my gallbladder removed. The doctor was like, yeah, that's going to fix it. The day after the surgery, I woke up. I'm like, okay, let me give it a few days. No, still throwing up. So what ends up happening is I call my pastor. One day because it got so bad, I was having suicidal thoughts.
Wow.
Like I was thinking but I was afraid. It wasn't that I wanted to.
Right.
I started feeling like I was about to take my own life. I don't know. So I'm driving back and forth, not even staying in my dorm room. Crazy situation. So I'm driving back and forth, got a dorm room at school, staying at my parents' house, driving an hour and a half, going to class, coming back. Not living a social life, nothing. Getting sicker, getting weaker, losing weight. And so on my way back, I'm about to take the Coldwater exit in Calhoun County. And I call my pastor. And I'm like, hey, I need to come talk to you. I don't really know what's going on. Like I'm in a haze, if you will.
Yeah.
So I go to his house, we sit down and talk, and the first thing that comes out of my mouth when we sit down is, how did you know when you were called to preach? And he laughed in my face for 2 minutes, dog. Like, straight up, looked me in my face and laughed. And I'm mad because I'm like, dude, you think this funny? I feel like I'm about to die. Like, help me. He said, I knew what you wanted when I heard your voice on the phone. Here's the part I didn't know. He had stood up and told the church that there were 7 people that the Lord had showed him had a call on their life. But I'm still on the drums over there tripping, right? So the day I announced it to the church, he puts his arm around me and he says, here's one, there's 6 of y'all left, right? Crazy story. So I'm still throwing up, by the way. Every day, every morning, I lie to you not, I'm throwing up. I preached my initial sermon March 13, 2011.
Wow.
I threw up the morning of March 13, 2011. Preached the sermon that afternoon. Woke up the next morning. I was fine. Crazy stuff. So I served as a youth minister there for a couple of years. Then he announces his retirement. Bro, there was a guy, great brother of mine, who was up for the church. I voted for him. Like, it just didn't work.
Yeah.
They asked me to serve as the interim because I didn't meet the qualifications. They asked me to serve as an interim while they went back through the process. I'm serving. At the time, I didn't want this.
Right.
I'm young. I'm trying to live my life. I was in school to be an engineer. Like, yeah, right. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Absolutely.
So I'm in school to be an engineer, and yeah, the Lord did a work on my heart. And in April, Easter Sunday, 2014 was my first Sunday as a pastor. And so I served there for 9.5 years, and then now I'm here at 15. And so GT is still one of the greatest churches to ever exist, in my opinion. But now I'm at another one.
Absolutely.
15.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, that's how we're here. And so, yeah, man, it's but I want to sit with this idea of what did you want to do? Because I think if we're honest, some people did. I'm not knocking it, but I never wanted to be a preacher. They used to tell me that I was going to be a preacher when I did the Martin Luther King speeches for Black History Month, and I did the Easter speeches, and I could say them real.
When all you could do was just read, you could read.
Right, I can read, but you're gonna be a preacher, right? But yet here I am.
Right.
So it's not what I wanted to do, but the Lord had a way of getting me here. What did you want to do?
I actually wanted to be an R&B singer.
Bruh.
Like, but my main thing, I had so much I wanted to do. I wanted to be like a movie producer. I wanted to write movies because I was in the theater world. I was doing theater at school. I was in the performing arts, everything. So I wanted to write movies. I wanted to sing. And if I really had to go get a job, I could see myself doing education. Like I could have been a principal, or I could have saw myself being a doctor, like of some sort, like probably just a family practice medicine, whatever that means.
What is it?
Family care physician,
primary
care physician. Yeah,
Yeah,
whatever.
that right
PCP.
Okay.
I could have been a doctor. My mama always said, I could see you in a white coat. That's something that I could possibly see you doing. So those, but what I really wanted to do, I wanted to just do music and do movies. I wanted to be the Jamie Foxx. I could do music, do movies. I actually tried to bargain with God and say, just let me be like Steve Harvey. Like, I'll motivationally speak. I'll do all that. You got me if you let me do that. And he was like, no.
Yeah. He has a habit. A holy habit. Of saying no.
Yeah. That's what I wanted. And I just wanted the New York life. I even thought about fashion design. I was literally in middle school, 8th grade, drawing suits and dresses. I can't draw, but it was beautiful. If I could find them right now, I'll just give them to somebody and be like, make this.
Okay.
So yeah, that's what I wanted. I wanted that.
My path was never really clear. Like I was on a path. The first time I ever went to UAB, which is I think why I ended up going there, but I was like a sophomore trying to go to West Point, the military academy. So my dad's military, my brother started out on that path. I was gonna do the same thing, but I wanted to go the academic route. I've always been kind of brainy, nerdy, and so that was initially my path. Then I was like, but I want to make some money too, and I kind of like my freedom, and I couldn't swim at the time. I've learned. Don't judge me. I've learned. But I wanted to. But I wanted my freedom. So I was thinking, why don't I just become like an engineer, go make some money and do some stuff like that. So I was applying to schools like Auburn, UAB, places like that. And it just never really settled, right? It just never, I could never find that perfect avenue to get where I was trying to go. Because God's word directs our paths.
Yes,
right?
it does.
But it just never worked for me. So now, so after that, I went to UAB, hated it. I've always been a good student. Lie to you not. I was sitting in classes at UAB falling asleep.
Wow.
And it wasn't because the professors were terrible. I just couldn't take it. So transferred back, when I answered the call to ministry, I transferred back to Jacksonville State and completely switched and did criminal justice. At the time, I wanted to work with youth and do like juvenile probation, stuff like that. And got the degree in criminal justice. Finished Jacksonville State summer 2014. Never used the degree. Because 3 months prior to graduating, I was elected as a pastor.
We need your degree in America right now.
Yeah, we need something. And so, yeah, man, it's I wanted it, and I wanted something else, and I did not want to do this. But what's crazy was once I yielded to it,
Yeah.
it's like this was the only thing that made sense. Have you? I don't know if you felt that way, because there's so much other stuff we could be doing, we could be good at, we could go get an education in, but it's like once I did it, this is the only thing that mattered.
Yeah.
It's the only thing that made sense, that aligned with my life, and then I see how all these other experiences, right, came together to make me who I am.
The best gumbo in the world.
Yeah, like crazy flavor,
Right?
but it's still the best gumbo in the world.
Absolutely.
And so, but I guess that leads me to think about us,
Right.
as people.
As people.
Right?
Yeah.
You and me and you. Like how do we wrestle with what we really want?
My Lord.
How are we? Help me today. How am I supposed to manage my desires?
Wow. Honestly, if I could be real, I don't think a lot of us, most of us, don't know, because we still are dibbling and dabbling in what we really wanted for ourselves in some way.
That's really good.
I think even if we're not the person doing it, we like to watch it or we like to go to it. So I think for me, because I like the movies, I like music, I love to go watch other people and performances and things of that nature. So we may never, some of us, never actually manage it. We just try to suppress it. And I think that's kind of unfair, because if God gave you the thought, it's there for a reason. So sometimes it's our lack of self-control that we don't know how to manage the one big thing that God got for us. And we just throw everything else aside because, God called me for this and I ain't supposed to do nothing else but this. I think that's sometimes the way.
Now we have to talk about the fact that I think the church contributed to that belief.
Absolutely.
I remember, and this is no knock. I love this man to death, but I remember the frustration. We're talking about real life.
Real life.
I remember the frustration of being a drummer. Played in high school, played in college. I was going back and forth playing at the church. But when I accepted my call to ministry, it's almost like my pastor was like, not almost. He was like, "You're not playing anymore. Like you're not playing." And Sunday,
my pastor too.
You're not playing anymore. And I was like, so imagine me having to get off of that, right? To watch somebody else do what I know I'm gifted to do. And that
That's hurt.
But I remember Robert Smith Jr.
Okay.
My preacher professor at BISA, he taught me this about scheduling, because he knew that a lot of his black students, African American students, we were itinerant, right? So, but Beeson's load was heavy.
Yeah.
And so he would pull me to the side and say, "Son, I want to tell you something." He said, "Sometimes you have to put off what you need to do for what's absolutely necessary." And so when I think about that, I didn't need to play, but I felt I did.
Yeah.
And so I get it. I mean, it's frustrating. It bothered me. I was upset about it, but it made me focus.
Yeah. I think for me, we actually donated the drum set.
No,
because I play drum. We donated the drum set when we built a new church, and to be called, I knew I was called when we was going in, but to have to get off the drum set, my mama donated to the church. Because I'm called to preach, and everybody was like, "Well, family, mama, daddy, pastor, you're gonna have to get off them drums."
Yeah.
You gonna have to focus, get in that word, sit down, study. Sounds familiar, right?
Right. But let me tell you the messed up part.
All right.
When we would go out to other places, he would tell me, and there was nobody, like there was a drum set and nobody was there to play the drums. He would say, go play. And I'd be so mad in my head because I'm like, when I want to play every week, you won't let me play.
Yeah.
But what it also taught me was, Josh, a member of our team, said this earlier today. He was like, when you have competing values, there's a forced hierarchy that you have to put on these things, right? So what he did for me, because I wouldn't have done it well for myself, was he forced a hierarchy on me and made me force a hierarchy on the things that I was gifted at as opposed to the things that I was called to do. But I think that's a struggle for everybody.
Absolutely.
Every believer trying to figure it out, trying to navigate where God is leading us. That's a challenge, man. How do I know what to give myself to completely?
Yeah.
When my gift may be paying my bills, but my call may not fund me. How do I navigate that reality in a way that's healthy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
and thinking about what your personality can handle, or what.
yeah.
I mean, because we all are gifted in some way, but our personalities are so diverse.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you have to have grace for every gift.
Yeah.
So how do you navigate operating in the grace for the gift while really operating in a life you never wanted to live?
I think it's being sensitive to the season. Because there was a season I didn't, and I'm not that kind of that season, but like there was a season, looking back, there was a season I didn't need to be playing. I needed to be learning what it meant to take preaching seriously.
No
and so
pun intended.
you know what I had to do?
Yeah, all right.
I had to yield. Like seriously, because I could have left and went to somebody who was going to let me do what I wanted to do. Or, and I'm not knocking this, I could have gone and started my own ministry because you're forcing me to obey, and that can be seen as oppressive. Yeah. Right? But we have to yield, man. And if I yield to a place of, if I yield to the point of understanding that what God could be using somebody else to do in my life can actually be a blessing to my life. Because if I wouldn't have taken preaching seriously for that 3-year intensive, if you will, I would have never been ready to pastor.
Absolutely not. Especially not pastor black people.
And the pastor, my own people.
Your own people.
That's the crazy
That's
part.
crazy. That's crazy. That's crazy. How was that experience? Pastoring your home church. As much as you can tell us.
No, it was good. It was good. It was look at me stuttering. It was trying though for me, because you've built these alliances, right? I mean, church in Anniston, Alabama, period, I guess I would say. It shapes your life and your world socially. I mean, my grandparents, the home house, as we call it, is 2 blocks away. So we would go out there, and when there was youth choir practice or Sunbeams and Crusaders and all of that stuff during the week, right? That stuff, you know, I used to walk there, ride my bike there, you know, during the week after school. We drive out that way. And so to end up in a position where you're pastoring, and now the people you sat with, you're called to shepherd, is crazy.
It's crazy.
Because initially you don't get it.
Right.
You don't get what this means, and you don't know what's coming. You don't know how you're going to have to lead people in a manner that cuts against even what you once built and supported. Because God calls us to do that kind of stuff, right? Yeah. And then at the same time, I'm imperfect. And they know me. They knew me. They knew me up like as. I mean, they called me Juicy when I was a kid because I was chunky. That's, there were people in the church, stuff like that. So, you never really graduate to being pastor in some people's eyes. For some people, you remain Byron forever.
Yeah.
And that in its tension, that's okay. But I can tell you this, it made a man out of me.
Absolutely.
And if nothing else, it definitely teaches you how to pray.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you just feel tossed
and driven
to and fro, right? But it was a fruitful experience. My pastor used to tell me, because he was a homeboy, and he served from 1968 to 2013, literally 45 years.
Wow.
And he told me that if you can pastor here, being who you are, and these people being what they are to you, you can serve anywhere.
Wow. So let's help the people, because sometimes the people, actually, more times than not, they're the ones actually afraid to talk about what we're actually open to talk about, how they are living lives that they never wanted to live, and the stuff that they really want to do, they can't do. Help the people today. Let's hear from.
So, yeah, it's a life. To me, the life of serving God is a life of inherent frustration. I mean, you are frustrated.
Yeah.
Because you've got your vision for what life is supposed to be. Life will look like, where you're going to live, what city, what state. I mean, the small stuff and the big stuff at the same time, right? Like, you've got these things. And so what I tell people, my urge to people is practice intentionally the art of yielding to God's voice. Like, straight up. Because daily, Eugene Peterson, in Daniel Groff's book, The Power of Place, that's what it's called.
All right.
In Daniel Groff's book, The Power of Place, he says that Eugene H. Peterson describes discipleship as the journey of going in one direction for a long time.
Wow.
And it knocks me out every time I read it. But the journey of going in one direction for a long time.
Yeah.
And we think we're called to be perfect, but we're really called to be faithful.
Yeah.
Oh man, I can't. Dr. G. Robinson. Okay. He just passed, man. God bless his soul. He was the pastor of the Galilee Baptist Church in Gaston, Alabama.
Yeah.
I gotta call his name because he blessed me, man. My friend Cameron Thomas, pastor of the Hutchinson Baptist Church in Montgomery, served under him as his youth pastor. And I went with Cam to a service. I think Cam was preaching there or something. And we were standing in the office, and Dr. Robinson was getting ready to take us out. And he said, son, he had a real deep, distinct voice. He said, son, I haven't always been perfect. He said, I haven't been perfect, but I've surely been faithful. And so we have to be faithful to where God is leading us, man.
Yeah.
And that, we're talking about it from a pastoral view, which, like you say, can to the people a lot of times seem and feel unfair.
Yeah.
Right. But the truth is, on your job, in your family, in your home, it may not be what you thought it would be, but it doesn't mean that you are free from being faithful to it. Yeah, you got to practice the art of yielding. Like, yeah,
that's good.
You got to practice the art of yielding, and you got to yield to the good in it, the bad in it. When it's for you, when it's working, when it's falling apart, when it doesn't make sense, you got to yield to it. That's what I was saying.
I always used to hear my dad, he still to this day says, after everything he says, typically, he says, I'll see you next Sunday. I'll see you then. I'll see you some. He always ends it with, if the Lord will. And I used to hate that. Because I'm like, what do you mean? Like, we going to be here for sure next week, until you actually grow up and realize, no, you can be here this morning and be gone this afternoon.
Yeah.
So Yielding to God's will. All of them.
All
All of God's
all
wills.
of the will.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, because God, I after my mama passed, I literally had this new theology of God. That God gonna do what God want to do.
Yes, he will.
Regardless
Yes, he will.
of whatever you want God to do. So yielding to God's will literally have you out here like, I'm crazy.
And I mean, we read the Bible today and look at these people like, y'all crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, just packing up your stuff, Abram, and going with no destination, no determined destination, at least that you've been made aware of. He says, I'll take you to a land that I will show you. Like, as you're going, I'll show you, right? Show you. So, I mean, to be faithful to God, it's a life of uncertainty. And I think American culture says, figure it out.
Yeah.
Like, or it needs to be clear. You need a 5-year plan. You need a 10-year plan. And there's nothing wrong with that. But God can throw you a curveball tonight that'll completely derail
absolutely
anything you plan for that. Honestly, I had been to Nashville, Tennessee one time.
Wow.
Bria and I got married in 2017. Our first trip, we came to Nashville thinking we were finna have fun in Nashville, not knowing that just because it was right above Alabama, it's cold.
Absolutely. It started getting cold in Huntsville.
So we're doing right. That is true. I don't really consider Huntsville Alabama. That's just another conversation. But like, we're riding bikes and stuff in Nashville, out by Vanderbilt, you know, where PF Chang's.
Yes.
And all of that is, right? So we're doing that stuff. Never made it to downtown, really. Never made it to North Nashville. We just spent that time out in West Nashville. If anybody had ever told me that I would be in Nashville, I would have said, yeah, you crazy.
Yeah.
Right. But when it happens, you follow God and you yield. And listen, we can talk about this next time.
All right.
But it's not pretty.
Oh no.
It's not pretty. Like, I remember watching you come up here.
Oh my.
And the fact that you just put all your stuff in your car and watching you do that was like, oh snap. This is what it looks like.
Yeah. Because our vision boards be giving false scenarios.
Absolutely, man.
And we create vision boards without God's will in mind. I think when we're having our prayer boards and our vision boards, we need to say, this is what I want. This is my will. But nevertheless, Lord, let your will be done. And sometimes we dream too small.
Absolutely.
And then other times we dream too big.
And I think sometimes, I'm done now. You know, I'm Baptist. I got to say it 3 times. I think sometimes we're too busy in our westernized approach to following God. What we're really doing is putting our will on God and telling him, you got to bless it.
If you really God.
If you God, you going to bless it.
Wow.
When in reality, when you look throughout scripture, not that God doesn't hear and answer prayers, and when we delight ourselves in him, he gives us the desires of our heart, right? But at the same time, God is busy leading you to places that you would never want to go, positions you would never want to be in. And somehow God makes that stuff beautiful. God makes that stuff beautiful. And he does his will and works his purposes in it. So that's what I got.
All things.
Yeah.
Work together.
Yeah.
For the good of them. We love the Lord. And are called
according to his purposes. Yeah, that's good.
Another avenue.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
Absolutely.
First episode.
Thank y'all for tuning in.